In 2007, the world watched Britney Spears shave her head in a viral frenzy, one of the most infamous moments in pop culture. But behind that single image was the start of something far more sinister. Nearly 2 decades of legal control and media exploitation. You've seen the photos, the headlines, the late-night jokes, but did you know that night, and what followed, were only the beginning of a story far darker than the tabloids ever let on? Fame didn't just put Britney in the spotlight. It turned her into a commodity, an obsession for millions, and an easy target for anyone looking to profit off her every move. The price of stardom, how Britney became everyone's obsession. Britney's journey into the pop stratosphere started with a bang. At just 16, she released Baby One More Time, and instantly became a household name. The schoolgirl outfit, the perfect choreography, the catchy chorus. It was a masterclass in pop marketing, and the world couldn't get enough. She burst onto the scene as the ultimate teen idol. With MTV's TRL and every radio station blasting her music on repeat, her face was everywhere, her persona crafted to be both innocent and provocative. But while the cameras loved her, they also set the stage for a level of scrutiny that bordered on obsession. From the very beginning, the media made it clear Britney wasn't allowed to be a regular teenager. She was expected to be flawless, and the second she stepped out of line, the backlash was immediate. Take her infamous 2003 Diane Sawyer interview, one of the first times the public saw just how ruthless the press can be. Sawyer grilled Britney about her breakup with Justin Timberlake, her virginity, even her supposed responsibility for her own heartbreak. The whole thing played out like a public shaming, with Britney forced to justify her every move, as if she owed the world an explanation for being human. And speaking of Justin Timberlake, when that relationship ended, the media didn't just report on it, they used it as ammunition. Timberlake's Cry Me a River video all but pointed the finger at Britney, fueling a narrative that she was the villain in their pop fairy tale. Suddenly, she wasn't America's sweetheart anymore. She was the girl who broke Justin's heart, and the headlines made sure you knew it. The fallout was vicious, and it set the tone for how the media would treat her from then on. Every misstep magnified, every rumor treated as gospel. The obsession didn't stop at her love life. Paparazzi culture exploded in the early 2000s, and Britney was their #1 target. Photographers camped outside her house, followed her to the grocery store, and trailed her on vacations. Privacy? Forget it. Every mundane errand became a photo op, every tired expression a headline. She couldn't escape the lens, and the constant surveillance turned her daily life into a never-ending spectacle. The pressure was relentless, and the cracks started to show. When Britney's 2007 MTV Video Music Awards performance aired, critics pounced. She looked exhausted, out of sync, and the media wasted no time declaring it Britney's breakdown. That single headline summed up the feeding frenzy. Instead of concern, there was mockery. Instead of empathy, there were jokes. The same outlets that once built her up now made money tearing her down, dissecting her every move and speculating about her mental state as if it were entertainment. This wasn't just fame. It was a public autopsy. Britney became the template for how to build up a star and then destroy her for sport. The price of stardom wasn't just the loss of privacy or the exhaustion of constant performance. It was total loss of control. The world watched every stumble, every mistake, and asked for more. But as the headlines got darker and the scrutiny more invasive, something else was happening. Something far more insidious than the public ever imagined. The conservatorship, a legal cage disguised as protection. Britney Spears may have been the biggest pop star on the planet, but behind the scenes, she had less control over her life than most teenagers. In 2008, after a string of public incidents and a mental health crisis broadcast for the world's entertainment, Britney was placed under conservatorship, a legal arrangement supposedly meant to protect people who can't manage their own affairs. On paper, it sounded like support. In reality, it became a long-term arrangement justified as support, but leaving her with almost no autonomy. Here's how it worked. Britney's conservatorship covered both her estate and her person. Her father, Jamie Spears, became conservator of her estate, controlling her finances, and eventually, Jody Montgomery was appointed as conservator of her person, overseeing daily life and medical decisions. For a while, attorney Andrew Wallet and later Bessemer Trust joined Jamie in managing her assets, but the core reality didn't change. Britney's career, her relationships, her body, and her money were all under someone else's thumb. Every decision, from releasing a new album to buying a cup of coffee, needed approval. She could perform in front of thousands in Las Vegas, but couldn't decide who she dated or if she could drive her own car. The details are brutal. Britney testified that she was forced to keep an IUD against her will. "They won't let me remove my IUD," she said in court, laying bare just how far the control went. She described being compelled to take lithium, a powerful drug that made her feel drunk, stripped her of her ability to function. She earned millions on stage, but couldn't freely spend her own money. The same woman who sold out arenas was micromanaged like a child the moment she stepped off stage. How did it come to this? The headlines from 2007 and 2008. Britney shaving her head, attacking a paparazzo's car with an umbrella, being wheeled out on a stretcher, became the justification for locking her into the system. The public saw chaos. The court saw someone incapable. What they didn't see was the constant surveillance, the manufactured isolation, and the relentless pressure that would break anyone. Instead of support, Britney got a legal cage. And here's the kicker. Conservatorships are almost impossible to escape. Britney had to petition the court again and again, fighting a system designed to keep her in. For most of the conservatorship, she didn't even have her own lawyer. She wasn't allowed to pick one until 2021. The process was opaque, the odds stacked against her, and the people in control had every incentive to keep the machine running. Her legacy and fortune became a business for everyone involved, and nobody was in a hurry to walk away. But silence has a breaking point. As the years dragged on, the cracks started to show. Fans began to notice the disconnect. A global superstar, still working, still performing, but unable to decide what to do with her own life? Questions turned into suspicion. Suspicion turned into outrage, and the world started paying attention in a way it hadn't before. The stage was set for a movement that would take the fight out of the shadows and into the spotlight. The power of #FreeBritney. How fans helped break the chains. What nobody expected was that a loose network of fans, scattered across the internet, would become the engine behind one of the most effective celebrity justice movements in history. The #FreeBritney campaign didn't just pop up overnight. It started as early as 2009, with diehard fans trading suspicions on forums and message boards. Things exploded in 2019 when the Britney's Gram podcast dropped, dissecting every cryptic Instagram post and digging into court filings. Suddenly, what looked like harmless pop star weirdness started to look like evidence. Fans pored over legal documents and discovered the ugly truth. Britney Spears had exclusive control over Britney's finances and day-to-day life. She wasn't just being managed, she was being micromanaged, right down to her relationships and medical decisions. Of course, the world laughed it off at first. Critics called the movement a delusion, a conspiracy theory cooked up by people with too much time and not enough sense. Mainstream media rolled their eyes. Even some celebrities shrugged and sided with the Spears family. But the fans wouldn't let it go. They mapped out timelines, cross-referenced court dates, and shared every disturbing detail. The receipts were there in black and white. Britney wasn't in charge of her career, her money, or even her own body. Social media poured gasoline on the fire. Hashtags like FreeBritney trended on Twitter and TikTok, drawing in millions who had never cared about conservatorship law in their lives. But the real shift came when the New York Times' Framing Britney Spears documentary aired. Suddenly, Britney's story wasn't just a niche internet obsession. It was a national conversation. The documentary pulled back the curtain on her legal nightmare, the media circus, and the way everyone, fans, paparazzi, the courts, had played a part in her exploitation. And when celebrities like Paris Hilton, Miley Cyrus, and Cher started echoing the moment's demands, the whole thing went from crazy fan theory to a legitimate cause. Then came Britney's own voice in court in 2021, and it was brutal. She looked the judge in the eye and said, "I just want my life back. I deserve to have a life." She described being forced to take medication, denied the right to remove her IUD, and blocked from simple freedoms most adults take for granted. The world finally saw what the fans had been screaming about for years. This wasn't a pop star meltdown. It was a woman trapped in a system designed to silence her. On November 12, 2021, the conservatorship ended. 14 years of legal control gone in a single court order. Britney walked out of the courtroom free, with the world watching, not in judgment, but in awe. The victory wasn't just hers. It belonged to every fan who refused to shut up, every protester who showed up outside the courthouse, every person who shared a hashtag or watched the documentary. They forced the legal system to listen. And yet, the story doesn't end with Britney's freedom. The #FreeBritney movement cracked open a conversation about how easily systems of control can ruin lives for profit. It forced everyone to look at the machine behind the headlines, the courts, the media, the managers, and ask who else might be trapped and invisible. Britney's fight was never just about one woman. It's a warning about what happens when power, money, and the law collide, and it leaves all of us with a responsibility to pay attention. Britney's case exposed how conservatorships can trap even the most famous and powerful. turning her life into a revenue stream for lawyers, managers, and so-called protectors who collected millions in fees while she lost her basic rights. For nearly 14 years, the system meant to safeguard her instead locked her out of her own choices and finances, all while the world watched and the courts enabled it. Her fight, and the movement it inspired, forced everyone to question how easy it is for anyone to lose control under these laws. So what do you think needs to change about conservatorship rules? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.